Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. The political soap opera which has been the negotiations on the composition of the Polish opposition coalition finally ended today. All combinations were taken into consideration and the last day of the talks between the opposition parties about creating a coalition to fight the governing Law and Justice Party is now behind us, with Civic Platform having failed to unite the whole opposition under a single coalition banner.
Before the morning political committee of the Civic Platform Party, where the final decisions on the Civic Coalition makeup were to be made, the Civic Platform politicians had poker faces.
Anything is possible. The members of our party are waiting impatiently for this final decision to be made.
In my opinion, everything still can change. The Polish People's Party has accustomed us to the door being opened, then closed like a swinging door. It turned out the Civic Coalition will run in the elections without the Democratic Left Alliance and without the Polish People's Party. We want to go and open our candidates list of the Civic Coalition to everyone, people active in our society, all kinds of volunteers, experts, local government activists, local government organizations. We want to form a coalition of Democrats and patriots. The formula of returning to politics on the back of the Civic Platform Party is not possible.
Ale formuła partyjna, polityczna została zakończona.
Schetyna announced that 20% of the candidates list will be designated for people of the civic opposition, non-governmental organizations. The same will be valid for the Senate. 3 slots, the 5th, 10th and the last, will be filled by local government officials. The Democratic Left Alliance leader, Włodzimierz Czarzasty, did not mince his words when commenting on Schetyna's decision. Grzegorz, you had a great chance to be the leader of Polish democracy, democratic women and democratic men. The leader of the Democratic Left Alliance announced the creation of a left-wing election bloc. The Democratic Left Alliance has its own candidates, but of course, as a part of a cooperation, we will co-create the joint lists. We will invite all left-wing entities. In turn, the leaders of the Polish People's Party explained that a coalition with the Civic Platform Party was impossible due to their ever stronger turn to the left. Civic Platform took a sharp left turn. It is good that we have finished the negotiations and it is too bad we did not reach an agreement. The fiasco of the Grand Coalition of the opposition does not concern anyone in the Law and Justice Party. Everything seems to indicate that after many weeks of a very exciting opposition soap opera entitled "We are forming a coalition," it has ended with a political disgrace. Grzegorz Schetyna announced the presentation of candidates list of the Civic Coalition will take place next Friday. He added that he would consider a result above 38% to be satisfactory, as much as the European coalition received in the election to the European Parliament. Election polls show that this result will be very difficult for the Civic Platform to match.
Sławomir Nowak, the former Minister of Transport in Donald Tusk's government, testified today in front of the Parliamentary Commission investigating VAT fraud. The Commission was especially interested in the informal body consisting of former officials of Tusk's government and other lobbyists which could have had an influence on the tax regulations. Sławomir Nowak supposedly took part in the informal body's meetings. From the Polish Parliament, Alexander Zajicka has more on this story.
I can't find it in my memory. This is the standard response of Sławomir Nowak, the former Minister of Transport, which we got used to when he was questioned by the Commission investigating the Amber Gold scandal, and which was his answer to most of the questions raised by the Commission investigating the VAT tax fraud. The questions mainly concerned the informal body of the Chancellery of PM Tusk, which was formed to debate the project of the VAT tax bill. Sławomir Nowak, the head of the team, claimed today that the team's role was purely consultative and that it was solely meant to coordinate the works of the Commission, Friendly State, led by Janusz Palikot, and the applicants of new regulations. The head of the Commission investigating VAT tax fraud, Marcin Horała, asked Nowak if his team's decision were binding, to which the former minister replied by saying that the final decisions were made by the appropriate ministers. members. That's when the head of the commission presented a note from the informal body's meeting in 2008, which stated clearly that there were, in fact, decisions made by the team's members. The document arrived only yesterday, brought by the former Deputy Minister of Finance, Elżbieta Chojna-Duch, and the other MPs from the Commission had no knowledge of its existence. Zbigniew Konwiński, the member of the Commission from the Civic Platform Party, was outraged by the fact he wasn't notified of the document and went as far as to call the questioning a blatant show. When Chojna-Duch was questioned before, she stated it was Sławomir Nowak himself who had informal power over the works on the tax laws.
I said already, I never worked on changes concerning tax laws. I don't feel like an expert in this matter.
You're not an expert, but you can always be interested in the matter, read and talk about it.
Only in the same way anyone could be interested, but since it wasn't my job, I was never invested professionally.
Do you know anything about the workings of the President's Chancellery concerning amendments closing the tax gap?
No, I don't.
What projects of the amendments of tax laws were handed to the Chancellery of the Prime Minister or from the Parliament of the President's Chancellery?
In regards to legislative matters, you would have to ask the head of the President's Chancellery. I had no competence to hand amendment projects to the Parliament.
Do you take part in consultations on such projects?
I don't recall any.
Sławomir Nowak was the last to be questioned by the Commission, which will now focus on preparing the final report.
Lucia Juric-Nicholsonova from Slovakia has become the head of the European Parliament's Employment and Social Affairs Committee. Prior to that, members of the European Parliament on the committee had twice blocked the candidacy of the former Polish Prime Minister Beata Szydło in contravention of the European Parliament's rules. The TV Republica correspondent in France, Zbigniew Stefanik, comments on this issue.
The events that led to the denial of Beata Szydło's candidacy for the position of head of the European Parliament Employment Committee set a precedent, since up until now there was an unwritten rule which stated that the parties within the Parliament would choose their candidates, with the members voting according to their party affiliations. Therefore, the lack of acceptance from the left side of the Parliament is a breach of the custom that had been in place for several decades. This event will certainly become historic. This attitude of the left side of the Parliament seems to say anyone but Beata Szydło, and therefore the choice of the Slovakian Member of Parliament is not a big surprise. However, it is difficult to say whether her being elected is positive for Poland. On one hand, having a representative of our region of Europe as the head of an important committee should mean that the European market will not be divided into western and eastern parts. On the other hand, Slovakia recently agreed to regulations which were unfavorable to Poland and other countries. That is why it is difficult to determine whether this choice is good for our country. Nevertheless, even though Central European countries are not well represented in the European Parliament's top jobs, this could prove adverse from the standpoint of regulations that are to be established in the future.
The vast majority of the American Congress has rejected the resolution proposed by the Democrats to begin the procedure to impeach President Donald Trump. The proposal was put forward following President Trump's critical comments regarding 4 congresswomen from the Democratic Party who deemed his comments to have been racist.
Donald Trump can sleep sound. The Chamber of Representatives rejected the resolution to begin the process of impeaching the American president by 332 votes to 95.
I just heard that the United States House of Representatives has overwhelmingly voted to kill the most ridiculous project I've ever been involved in. The resolution, how stupid is that, on impeachment?
The Democrats proposed the resolution following the political storm caused by Donald Trump's critical tweets concerning 4 congresswomen from Africa and South America who criticized his administration's migration policy. So interesting to see progressive Democrat congresswomen who originally came from countries whose governments are a complete and total catastrophe, the worst, most corrupt and inept anywhere in the world, if they even have a functioning government at all, now loudly and viciously telling the people of the United States, the greatest and most powerful nation on earth, how our government is to be run. Why don't they go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came? Then come back and show us how it is done. The president's tweets outraged the Democrats.
Yet the president's comments about our colleagues this weekend showed that he does not share those American values. These comments from the White House are disgraceful and disgusting, and these comments are racist.
When asked to comment, Donald Trump stated that he will not be changing his mind in this matter.
Sir, do you regret your tweets given that backlash, sir?
Do you have any regrets at all about the tweet, about what you said?
About what? No, if people want to leave our country, they can. If they don't want to love our country, if they don't want to fight for our country, they can. I'll never change on that, no.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.
Welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Tonight the temperatures will be noted from 9 degrees in Olsztyn and up to 15 degrees in Lower Silesia, and 16 will be the maximum in Szczecin. Tonight will be dry without any rain. Tomorrow in Poland, nice and sunny all over the country, but some rain is expected in the north. 23 degrees in Warsaw and the maximum of 25 in Zielona Góra. Thank you and good night.
Poland Daily Business Edition. Tonight we'll talk about taxes and how to make business in Poland. Olaf Wojak of Adam Smith Center is our expert.
Good
Sir,
evening.
welcome to the show. And let us start from the government program that is designed to help people who are in debts. This is how it's sold. But is it really?
Well, unfortunately, it's something that it helps people that aren't supposed to be helped, and people that really need this help don't fit in this program. Of course, it's a certain percentage, but
we're talking about consumer bankruptcy.
Yes,
people who took too many loans, couldn't handle it, got very deep problems with various lenders. Some lenders gave them money knowing they will not pay and they will go to default. So now government is extending helping hand to those people.
Well, we have to understand that this is something that teaches people not to take responsibility for what they do, and it's a problem because I understand that there are people that just were unlucky and something went wrong, and we should, as a society, try to help those people. But unfortunately, this kind of program helps not the right people, not those that were unlucky, but those that are doing this on purpose, they're focusing on cheating the system, and it's quite interesting, since it was a matter, a loud matter that was spoken out loud on last presidential campaign in United States, because current President Donald Trump was also a person that bankrupted before, and even he said that this system is unfair, that yes, he used it because it was available, but he would handle it without it. So I think that the biggest problem with this is that there are certain unresponsibility with it, that you know that you have that you cannot handle your finances, and that you will get your help even if you do it purposely.
But that's mechanism that's in that's working inside every free market economy in the world, and pretty much what can we do about that?
Well, it's kind of not fair, since we shouldn't pay for not mistakes of others, but for doing wrong on purpose. We have to understand this system right now helps not the right people. So I think absolutely we should cancel it and reconsider how to build it once again, because it's not helping the right people. I have spoken with people who had healthy hands, who were able to work, and they said that they're just waiting to call their bankruptcy, and they're waiting for the court, because it has to be maintained by the court. They're just waiting for the decision, and then they will be free out of their decisions. But their decisions were made on purpose. They knew what they were doing. So it's really unfair for the others that needs this help. And I think this program is hurting all the people that are really efficient with their finances and what they're doing.
On the flip side, we have a situation when making business is a risky venture, and lots of people trust to the uncharted waters. We don't know what will happen next year when we have investment that takes, for example, more than a few years and then even more to pay back. We are putting ourselves on risk.
But this law concerns people, private people, not those owning companies. So it's not about making it's not about making safer doing business. It's about feeling safer for people that take unnecessary risk with their finances.
So this law is.
It should be changed, and it's not right, and it helps not the right people that really needs this help.
Do you think that is like election advertisement?
No. This program is already for a few years, and it's a way of helping. Probably European Union forced us to maintain this program when we didn't have one a few years earlier. But it's not an election call, and there are a few thousand people that want to use this help each year.
Your objection is that they shouldn't have, because they are using it on purpose.
I believe that if we would have more finances in our wallets, we could help each other. Yes, and this is we know who to help. Yes, if we have a friend and we know he was unlucky, we will help him, because we know that he had problems. But we don't need all to pay for someone that's using the system for his or her own advantage.
Speaking about companies and the taxes, do you feel that the Polish government is looking deeper into pockets of entrepreneurs in order to finance the social spending programs like 500+?
Each year, and it's because of the numbers. It's because the minimum wages is getting higher, and then it means that all the taxes concerned with work are going higher, and the work is much more expensive. And this is a big problem for our economy and a big problem for our country. And absolutely, we should do something about it, because we are paying for a system that's not efficient. Right now, we're paying for national insurance, and what we pay, it's an outcome of what we want or we have to pay to our employee. But the employee should decide whenever he wants to be insured and in what company. Right now, he doesn't have any choice, and efficiently we use 13% of the budget we pay. So each person in Poland right now paying all of the money to the insurance company uses 13%, and I'm talking about the advantage of all people, even those the most sick. So we use only 13% of all the money we pay to the institution, and it's absolutely unfair.
13%? That's
yes,
the money
87 is lost. And still our government...
bureaucratic machine that eats those money, or
it's because we already ate the money from the years before.
That's
so
true,
each year we have to take
well, this is because the system is designed as a help, as a vehicle to help those who cannot work anymore, who are not anymore able to support themselves.
Yeah, but the system was announced after World War I in Germany, and it was then made or extended and communist country under Russia when Soviet Union was our big brother,
right.
And if we have a free economy, we should really get over with it. Yes, and we have to believe that we can work and choose our own future without institutions that chooses for us.
Olaf Wojak, Center of Adam Smith, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much
for this conversation. That was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
In Poland on Friday, a lot of sunbed umbrellas might be needed around Szczecin, Białystok, as well as in the northern parts of the country and in Warsaw. The air temperature will be 1012 hectopascals. In Europe tomorrow, 34 degrees in Rome, 33 in the Athens and up to 36 in Madrid. A bit cooler fall in Oslo, Norway, where the thermometers will show only 18 degrees Celsius. This is all for tonight. Thank you.
Welcome to Poland Daily Culture. I'm John Carter.
And I'm Paulina Odrstein, and today we're exploring the Museum of Anna and Jarosław Iwaszkiewicz in Podkowa Leśna.
They are one of Poland's greatest literary couples, so come and join us as we find out more about this literary couple.
Stawisko is the name which Anna and Jarosław Iwaszkiewicz gave to the estate they received as a wedding gift from Anna's father, Stanisław Wilhelm Lilpop, in 1920. In 1928, a traditional Polish manor house was built there. For over 50 years, it was their home and maintained its character as a literary and artistic center. Many people fell under the spell of its picturesque setting near beautiful woods, its tranquility, and indeed the unique atmosphere of the house itself. Many of the writer's best-known works were written there. During World War II, Stawisko became a place in which many refugees from Warsaw found shelter. The Museum of Anna and Jarosław Iwaszkiewicz was established there after the writer's death, in accordance with his will. The painting collection and the furnishing of the house prove that it was a rich family. They bought land and estates. The Lilpop family became the owner of the Wilhelm family's estate, so the area of Podkowa Leśna and Brwinów. Stanisław Wilhelm Lilpop, Anna's father, was a landowner and dedicated to settle here.
Ojciec Anny już funkcjonuje jako ziemianin, i on tutaj osiadł na tych terenach.
He was the chairman of the Hunters Partnership. He was hunting in the forest near Brwinów, but also further away. He traveled to the Africa Safari in Kenya in 1910 and 1911, but also he was engaged in the social life of local people. He was the co-chairman of the Light and Power Company, which built the Warsaw Commuter Railway, which links Warsaw and Podkowa Leśna.
Był współtwórcą, właścicielem spółki Światło i Siła, które założyły i wybudowały kolejkę EKD, obecną kolejkę WKD, łączącą Podkowę Leśną z Warszawą.
He had a huge impact on building Podkowa Leśna. He used the Howard's Law. In other words, he knew how to separate the common public space in order to make the city integrative. So he had a huge impact on many things. Only if we want to be mean, we can say that he was hunting and dividing large farms into smaller ones in order to sell them. He was very engaged in social life. He was also a photographer and the author of the first stereophotography.
Ten wątek fotografem, był autorem pierwszej fotografii stereoskopowej. Ta rodzina Lilpopów, tak, z jednej strony zamożna.
On the one hand, very rich middle-class Lilpop family, on the other, poor Iwaszkiewicz family. Iwaszkiewicz came from a very poor noble family. He was born in Kalnik, the area of today's Ukraine. His father was a clerk in a sugar mill, but also took part in the January uprising. Jarosław Iwaszkiewicz was the youngest child in the family.
Był powstańcem, uczestniczył w powstaniu styczniowym. Bolesław Iwaszkiewicz, ojciec Jarosława Iwaszkiewicza.
He had an older brother who was an adult when he was born. He also had 3 older sisters, Jadwiga, Anna and Helena, who helped them with raising his daughters and lived here in Stawisk. So they are quite important in the history of the house.
W życiu Iwaszkiewicza wielokrotnie, ponieważ po pierwsze pomagają w wychowaniu jego córek.
This poor family was related to the Szymanowski family because of Maria Iwaszkiewicz's mother, whose photograph stands on the fireplace in the living room. Iwaszkiewicz's sister never got married. They were governants. As a young man, Iwaszkiewicz did the same for a living. He was working as a teacher on every summer due to the family's material status. He was a home teacher of rich landlords or aristocrats' children. He was the first that came to Warsaw in 1918.
W majątkach, pracując jako nauczyciel domowy. I tak też było, gdy w 18 roku...
He was 20-something at that time, so he was a newly made lawyer. He graduated university in Kiev and came to Warsaw where he taught Weronieccy children. He had many jobs, but this was his first.
Jechał tu do Warszawy, to właśnie utrzymywał się pracując, ucząc dzieci księstwa woronieckich w Warszawie. Podejmował inne prace.
He came to Warsaw in 1918. This was the time of regaining independence, great happiness.
Wielkiego boomu, radości z odzyskanej wolności i w to życie...
Iwaszkiewicz wanted to be a part of it, so he founded the Scamander group of experimental poets. And then he met Anna Lilpop. She was a very sensitive person. She loved music and art.
Na sztukę, wrażliwa na muzykę.
But she was a writer too.
Pisała, ale pisała dużo mniej, pisała nieregularnie.
Yes, but not so much. She didn't write on a regular basis. Anna Iwaszkiewiczowa wrote the memories and the animals from Stawisk.
Ale też pisała szkice krytyczno-literackie o Konradzie, o Pruście.
She was also writing critical literary sketches. She was translating from French and German, but again, not on a regular basis. That's why she's perceived as a person living with the great writer, a person who understood his work. She was a great reader and reviewer, that's for sure. They met in this environment. They got married in 1922 and then settled here in Stawisk.
A potem zamieszkali tu w Stawisku.
The house has retained its original architecture and now shows the life and work of people who lived there. The museum possesses several valuable collections. The archives hold the majority of Jarosław Iwaszkiewicz's manuscripts, which includes books collected by Iwaszkiewicz for many years, as well as some which belonged to his father. The photographic archive contains over 100,000 items from different periods, including those from an African safari in 1910. The museum also possesses an interesting musical archive with notes and musical manuscripts. In addition, the house contains a fine collection of Polish paintings from 19th and 20th century, as well as valuable pieces of furniture, works of art and objects of everyday use. Their interiors have maintained their original character. The house gives the impression that its tenants are only temporarily absent. As in the past, the rooms are filled with literature, music and art. Each year, many chamber music concerts, literary meetings and exhibitions take place in Stawisko.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. On June 28th this year, Poland celebrated the 100th anniversary of the signing of the Versailles Treaty. The Versailles Treaty forced Germany to allow a Polish state to be reborn, as well as respecting its western border. An accomplishment largely owed to the famous pianist Ignacy Paderewski. Today we will be speaking to the historian Dr. Krzysztof Jabłonka about the background, the implementation, and the importance of the Versailles Treaty. So at the time of the signing of the Versailles Treaty, Poland has only been on the map for a little bit over a year, and there were disputes about who the leader of the country is. I was hoping you can tell me a little bit about who the leader of Poland is at the time and who are the representatives sent to the Paris Peace Conference.
Four social movements prepared the Polish nation for independence. First and foremost, there was a very strong workers' movement at the time, represented by the Polish Socialist Party. There was also a people's movement that was represented by the Polish People's Party. There was a national democratic movement represented by the National Democratic Party, as well as a Christian democratic movement, a workers' movement represented by the Polish Christian Democratic Party. In this conglomeration, two concepts of Poland, a national Poland and historical Poland, were formed. Roman Dmowski, president of the Polish Committee in Paris, initially in Lausanne, opted for the national option, at times even nationalistic. He represented Poles in front of the states fighting against Germany, and so he was a natural representative of Poland for the future peace conference. On the other hand, the country was dominated by leftist currents, workers' currents, or the independence trend, represented by Józef Piłsudski, the commander of Polish legions and all Polish armed forces that were forming anywhere, even in France. And we can clearly see that both of these great builders of Poland had separate concepts of the future state. While Piłsudski wanted to restore the former borders and create a federation with nations that once formed the republic, with Lithuania, Belarus and Ukraine creating a new republic of four nations, Roman Dmowski wanted to focus exclusively on ethnic Poles, take as much as possible from Poland's neighbors and cut off from the Germans with an ethnographic line, which would mean a return to the lands where the Poles were still existing, and above all, those areas that Poland lost unlawfully. These two concepts collided with each other in constructing the Polish delegation for talks at Versailles. Paderewski was a man of peace who combined these two concepts. He himself represented a Christian democratic or universalist concept, but with a right-wing tint. In the end, there was a division of roles, which was very wise for those times because it prevented deeper schisms. Western affairs were given to the National Democrats. Piłsudski clearly said that whatever we get in the West would be a present from the Western countries. We would not be fighting on our own with Germany, even the weakened Germany. We won the Greater Poland Uprising, we liberated the center of the old Polish lands, Poznań, Gniezno, the former capitals, and the access to the sea, Warmia, Mazuria, that we could only win by a plebiscite and a political arrangement, a diplomatic game. And only in the east was the historic Poland able to come back to life. The east was where the German troops were retreating from and Russian troops took their place, be it the Bolsheviks or the Tsar's army troops. And then the Poles were able to drag Ukraine over to their side and block the march of the Russians towards the east. They reached really impressive borders in the east, but there was one serious boundary. East was also preparing to march west, but not for historical or even imperial reasons, but for ideological reasons. The East was the ideology of communism. There were a lot of people not associated with Russia, yet associated with communism and also Bolshevism, which was a Russian version of communism. And this version was gearing up to spread throughout Europe and bring communism to the heart of Europe over the corpse of Poland. As a result, huge amounts of Bolshevik troops pushed on Poland, and that is what Poland had to defend from. Eventually, both concepts, Roman Dmowski and Józef Piłsudski's, won for the good of Poland. In the West, the Treaty of Versailles gave us fairly good borders. We lost only Warmia and Mazuria, but the Polish population that lived there was of evangelical Lutheran denomination and opted to be a part of Germany. We lost part of Gdańsk, which became a free city, but we gained a large part of Silesia, although not the entirety of it, but they spoke, thought and understood in Polish. In this way, the nascent Second Republic was the revived emanation of the First Republic of the 18th century, but on the other hand, it was a new republic in Europe, built on the the principles of democracy and legal order. In this way, Poland reconciled both tendencies, becoming the Second Republic of Poland.
Z drugiej strony, nowa republika w Europie, zbudowana na zasadach demokracji i porządku prawnego. W ten sposób Polska pogodziła obie tendencje, stając się Rzecząpospolitą Polską.
Roman Dmowski is widely acknowledged as one of the three fathers of the Polish state reborn in 1918, together with Piłsudski and Paderewski. He never held an important official role in the new Polish state apart from a short stint as Minister of Foreign Affairs in 1923. Instead, he played his most important role as head of the Polish delegation at the Paris Peace Conference. Next up, we will ask Dr. Jabłonka about how Dmowski managed to convince the great powers at the conference to allow a strong Polish state to be reborn. While Piłsudski wages war on the Soviet Bolsheviks in the East, Dmowski played a more diplomatic role in convincing the Paris Peace Conference that Poland needs to reappear on the map, needs to be a country again. And I was wondering how he went about doing that, convincing the great powers of the importance of Poland.
Tak, bardzo trudno było, zarówno u progu I wojny, jak i u jej zakończenia.
Yes, it was very difficult to explain to the great powers of this world the necessity of restoring the Polish state, both at the dawn of the First War and by its end. Dmowski remembered from his life the fact that, living in Paris, he suddenly discovered that he had to learn English well, and for a few years, with the help of an elderly lady who was paying large sums of money, he trained his English. During the Parisian Congress, at some point, the Chairman, Prime Minister of France, Georges Clemenceau, arose and said, "And now Poland has the stand," and pointed to Roman Dmowski. Roman Dmowski asked for additional time, about 5 hours, during which he explained to everyone gathered for just how long Poland had existed in Europe, why it ceased to exist, and why it should be restored for the sake of European and world order and continue to play its role, because it was the center and heart of Europe. It was not understood back then. And many people who listened to Dmowski wrote, "We admired his logic, but also his great English." The English delegates did not speak with such precision and correct vocabulary as this foreigner. The greatest moment for Poland came when 32 representatives of the whole world, all continents, began to sign the text negotiated with the Germans. At first the Germans resisted, considering it a dictate, because they had nothing to say. It must be admitted that Lloyd George did many things for them, and eventually they were forced to agree to the symbolic date of the beginning of the war, the 28th of June, the 5th anniversary of the attack in Sarajevo in 1919. In the same hall where the Second German Reich was proclaimed, all the delegations and reporters from all countries of the world, including the neutral ones, gathered in the mirrored hall of the Versailles Palace. Then the first 5 main world countries, the so-called leading powers, came to the stage to sign the document: the United States, the British Empire, France, Italy, and the Empire of Japan. Then the representatives of Belgium, Bolivia, and Brazil approached until the last country, in alphabetical order. The ceremony of signing the treaty was to be accompanied by cannonballs. 33 of them were prepared because of the 32 winning countries and the 33rd defeated one, Germany. The cannon jammed for unknown reasons, therefore in the beginning there was no salute. When the representatives of Panama and Peru were signing the treaty, the cannon finally unblocked itself. When a representative of Poland was called to sign, who was Master Ignacy Jan Paderewski, he took the pen and touched the text when an artillery salute shot off. Then the chairman, Prime Minister Georges Clemenceau, rose up and said, "This is how Europe welcomes Poland onto its map, with the sound of a cannon." The signing continued. Once the delegate of Uruguay finished, the two representatives of Germany, with cylinders in hand and bare heads, came to the stage. Hermann Müller and Dr. Bell, whose first name we do not know even today, signed the entire treaty rather briefly. The document was sealed, closed and handed over to France. The text was written in two languages, equally important: French, the language of diplomacy, and English, a newly born world language.
Równorzędnych i równoważnych: francuskim, języku dyplomacji, i angielskim, noworodzącym się języku światowym.
As we have seen today, the Versailles Treaty was crucial for Poland to reappear on the map after 123 years of partition by Russia, Prussia, and Austria. The Polish delegation to Paris had to work hard to convince the great powers to draft a treaty that's favorable to Poland. It was made possible by the excellent cooperation between the three fathers of Polish independence, Piłsudski, Dmowski, Paderewski, showing just how much can be done by working together. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. Now see you next time on Poland Daily History.
Hello and welcome to Poland Daily Travel. This next series of episodes will take you to Konstancin, just south of Warsaw. It's about 20 kilometers from the Palace of Culture in the center of Warsaw. Konstancin is famous as a spa town. It was started about 120 years ago, and people still go there on a regular basis to take the waters. We'll also stop off and have a conversation and a meal with Nick Richardson at the Park Cafe and Restaurant. This is one of the fine outdoor eating experiences you can have in the whole area of Warsaw. The Kolczynski family always makes everyone feel welcome. So enjoy the weather, and we hope you enjoy the conversation. Stay tuned for Poland Daily Travel in the beautiful garden suburb of Konstancin, outside of Warsaw. We sure do appreciate you watching. If you really like what you're seeing, why not subscribe? It only takes you just a second. It's a small moment for you, and it means a lot to us. So keep watching Poland Daily Travel. Tell all your friends. We'll see you next time. This is Will, signing off. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting edition. I always say that of Poland Daily. Is it exciting? It's fun for us.
It's fun for us because we're doing it.
Yeah. If you were here, if they were here,
they'd be having fun too.
Those people on the other side over there, they'd be having fun too, because we're at the Park Cafe and Restaurant, aren't we?
We're at a restaurant with food and drink.
Yeah, and after breathing in all that good,
I feel a lot better.
You feel good after breathing in
that saline air has really helped all my chronic conditions.
Has it?
Absolutely.
You are chronic. That's true.
I am. I do have one chronic medical condition. Actually, it's not fatal, but I do have it.
What is it?
It's something where you produce too many red blood cells.
Is that true? Actually?
Yeah, I do have it.
Really?
And I take a little tiny aspirin every day.
To break
just to make your blood less thick in case.
Really? Or we can drink a little wine. That'll do it too.
Well, yes. Yeah. But but it's great. It doesn't. Cheers. Lovely to be here.
Sauvignon Blanc.
Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah. Good.
Very acceptable.
Yeah. It's just a gorgeous day, isn't it?
It's a lovely day.
Isn't it better? So we got some food. What are you having?
I'm going to be very boring. I'm having a burger and chips.
A burger and a burger. I like how you said a burger and chips. Is that how you say it at Oxford? You went to Oxford, right?
I went to Oxford, yes.
No, you didn't. I want to see a diploma. You got it with you?
Somewhere in the house.
No, a friend of mine used to always tell everybody that I didn't go to college yet. I was like, what? I went to a bunch of colleges. I went to too many colleges.
It's very actually
they couldn't
funny.
get me out of school.
It is actually quite funny. When I was there, you don't get the diploma unless you actually ask for it.
I know. I haven't got one, actually.
And then when you get it, it's sort of rather tentative. It says something along the lines of, it having appeared to the registrar that you have done whatever, here's your certificate.
It seems to have appeared that maybe you've done enough.
Exactly, as if there was any doubt.
But isn't that beautiful?
It's
sort
lovely.
Of beautifully
as if it's somehow an insult.
Vague in a sense. To be too excited about it.
No, or that anybody should even question, that you should even need a piece of paper to prove this.
That's it. And I remember I got this, I mean, I'm not that smart, but I did okay in a couple of things. I got this award, but there was no piece of paper.
I mean, that's very English thing. You know, the original
no
passports, which only really came in at the beginning of the 20th century. But just before that, the original ones were merely letters from the foreign secretary saying, "This is a good chap, please let him through." I mean, this modern documentation, which we take for granted, 120 years ago, it just didn't exist. You could move about.
Glorified ID cards. Why do we have all this stuff anyway?
Because we live in an age where nobody trusts anybody.
That's why we have it. Nobody trusts anybody, right?
Yeah.
But should they?
Well, it would be nice to think they could, wouldn't it? I don't know.
I think you can trust a lot more.
We're going to have to go back to something like Rousseau or something to find out whether philosophically we can trust people.
I don't think Rousseau would help much, would he?
I don't know. Or Montesquieu or something.
Montesquieu's better not.
I always get these French ones confused.
Rousseau's the naked savage guy.
That's
right. Rousseau said that man in his primitive estate is the best, the most honest. I don't agree with that. I think that's absolutely wrong.
If you go to some of these very primitive societies, a few that are left, I'm not sure that the life is particularly
I wouldn't want to live there.
Joyful.
No, and I don't think we're so great in our primitive state. I think it's the developing ourselves through understanding our history, understanding our surroundings. It's like we were saying when we were just walking. We were talking about having a bit of discipline actually makes things more interesting than anything goes. I mean, that's not interesting. It becomes terribly tedious, boring.
Exactly. No, you've got to have some framework, some point of reference on which to base all your other decisions.
Otherwise, that's what I like about Europe. Actually, it has this framework of ages and these layers.
Yes, that's right. I think we're living in very strange times in the way that people are undermining or seeking to undermine those things on which European civilization is actually built. This is very weird because you don't see it in other societies.
No, why are we tearing ourselves apart?
I mean, in Islam, we can argue about what is the correct interpretation of Islam, but it's still very strong in the different Islamic countries. There's no suggestion that they sort of start going around undermining Islamic values. So why in the West we should undermine those values, particularly since they are the things which gave us the values which we think, or gave us the possibilities rather, which we value so much. Very strange. Very strange indeed.
Well, I mean, the thing I enjoy about doing this show, and the thing I enjoy about living in Europe, I mean, it always has captivated me since I was a kid studying, reading biographies and studying history. I mean, a little kid too, like 7, 8 years old, is the layers of stuff that are going on, right? I said it a little bit before, but just the presence of history and that's right, the salad's mine. Thank you very much. And the ability, as we did in a previous episode, we did a road trip recently from Warsaw up the Wisła to Torun, which I hope some people have watched. And just got lucky stumbling on a couple of things, and one of them was one of the oldest churches, one of the oldest 5 churches, which was not advertised.
Right.
I never heard about it, and we just stumbled upon it, and it was such a phenomenal piece of architecture. And if you got an eye for that, having lived in Europe a bit, and you're interested in it, you notice it.
Well,
right?
Something we stumbled on last week in Przemysl, when I was doing a history program, in the crypt, recently restored crypt of the cathedral, was in fact alleged to be the skull of St. Valentine. He of the February the 14th.
Yeah, he's the guy. But what did St. Valentine do? Besides, being famous for cupids and things like that.
I'm not entirely sure, unfortunately.
I don't know either. Yeah, I've always, that's something you should look up. I'm not going to Google it right now. But...
Bon appetit, by the way.
Cheers. Yeah. Health again. Yeah. Poland Daily Travel. We're going to tuck into this. We'll be right back after this short break with Nicholas and with me from the Park Cafe and Restaurant in beautiful Konstantin, the suburb south of Warsaw. Stay tuned.
Sounds good.